As Alex mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are currently with PAMA, some of the potential opportunities down the road with SALSA, or the Saving Access to Laboratory Services Act. That's probably the last time I'll say the full name, but we refer to it as SALSA, which is a great name as we're advocating for the legislation on Capitol Hill. And then I'll talk a little bit at the end of my presentation just about how you all could get involved and how individual labs can help us advocate for the passage of SALSA in Congress. So I'm going to start with just a quick recap of where we are today. We're all familiar with PAMA and the cuts that have been implemented as a result of PAMA. But as a refresher, it was legislation, the Protecting Access to Medicare Act, that passed in 2014 and resulted in pretty significant rate cuts to the clinical lab fee schedule that went into effect in 2018. And of course, there was not an across-the-board cut to all test codes, but rather each code was examined individually, and established new rates were then published in 2017 and went into effect in 2018. Unfortunately, the data collected from labs was really not representative of the entire laboratory industry. There was overrepresentation by the large national labs. About 90% of the data that was collected was from independent labs, despite them only really being about 50% of the volume of the CLFS. So that drastically drove rates down. Test codes were cut anywhere from 30 to 60%. And while there was a phase-in of those cuts over time, the impact on clinical labs, as you all know, was pretty significant. So we had 3 years of 10% cuts in 2018, 2019, and 2020. Fortunately, in 2021 and 2022, the cuts were frozen by Congress. This was really as a result of advocacy from the laboratory community pushing back on the impact that COVID was having on labs and the challenges that labs were facing with additional cuts coming down the road as they were ramping up to try to prepare for and respond to the pandemic. However, 15% cuts are scheduled to go into effect in 2023 if Congress doesn't take any additional action. So that's kind of the key component there, because we're going to talk about some potential changes to that with SALSA. And then, of course, the next round of data reporting is also scheduled to go into effect in January 2023, absent any congressional action.